Every second, the world consumes over 160,000 terawatts of electricity. But imagine waking up one morning to find that all of it has vanished. No lights. No internet. No electricity to power your phone or keep the water running. What would happen? How would life function without power? Would we survive, or would society fall apart? Electricity has become the backbone of our modern existence. From powering our homes to driving industries and even supporting critical sectors like healthcare and communications, we rely on it every day. But what if one day, that power disappeared completely? What would a world without electricity look like, and what would the consequences be for our lives, our society, and the future of our planet? In this video, we'll explore the real-world implications of losing electricity and how it could change everything. First, let's address the immediate challenges. The moment power goes out on a global scale, everything we take for granted would be affected. Imagine the chaos that would unfold as phones, computers, and radios all lose power. Without communication, people would have no way to reach their loved ones, no way to find out what's going on, and no way to get help in times of emergency. Banks would close. ATMs would stop working. Digital currencies and transactions would be rendered useless. Hospitals, which rely heavily on electricity to power life support machines, would be thrust into chaos. Critical surgeries, monitoring systems, and emergency room operations would all come to a halt. What's more, hospitals' ability to store perishable medicines and vaccines would collapse, leading to further disaster. On a broader scale, transportation would become chaotic. Without power, traffic lights would fail, public transport systems would freeze, and airplanes would remain grounded. Travel would grind to a halt, and people would be stranded in place, unable to move or communicate. In cities, the lack of power would make it nearly impossible to get food or clean water. Water pumps and sewage systems would fail, creating public health risks. Let's look deeper at the consequences of a power outage on a global scale. Within days, entire industries would collapse. Food production and distribution would be severely impacted, leading to massive shortages in supermarkets. Imagine walking into a store only to find empty shelves and no way to restock. Farmers, who rely on electricity to power irrigation systems and keep livestock fed, would struggle to produce the basic goods we need to survive. The energy crisis would also put a strain on essential services. Emergency services, including fire departments, police, and paramedics, would face difficulties as their vehicles and communication systems are powered by electricity. The loss of these services could mean widespread panic, looting, and even violence as people fight for basic resources. With no electricity, sanitation and waste disposal systems would break down, leading to unsanitary living conditions that could lead to outbreaks of disease. Even the government would struggle to maintain order. Without power, they would be unable to communicate effectively with the public. The internet would be offline, television and radio stations would go dark, and the global economy would come to a screeching halt. Let's bring this scenario to life through a vivid story. Picture a typical family in a high-rise apartment building. One morning, the lights go out, and everything seems fine at first. But soon, the elevators stop working. The family, living on the 20th floor, has to climb up and down the stairs just to retrieve basic supplies. Without heating or air conditioning, the temperature inside becomes unbearable. At night, the only light they have is a single candle flickering in the corner. With no way to cook, food begins to spoil in the fridge. No water runs from the taps. The family has to go outside to search for bottled water, navigating through streets where traffic lights are out and cars are stuck in traffic. The roads are chaotic, and no one is sure who's in charge. Over time, more people start to feel the weight of this situation. As days turn into weeks, food and water become scarce, and people turn on each other. Supplies of medicine run low, and hospitals become overwhelmed with patients who are suffering from conditions that can't be treated. People begin to panic, and societal order starts to break down. You begin to wonder, how long would this last before everything collapses? The social structure that we rely on every day would begin to deteriorate rapidly. With no power to run businesses, jobs would be lost, and people would struggle to make ends meet. The economy, which depends on the flow of money and goods, would grind to a halt. Global supply chains would collapse, causing a ripple effect across nations. The rich and the poor would feel the strain equally, but those who rely on technology the most, from the elderly to the disabled, would be disproportionately affected. In communities, people would begin to turn inward. Trust in the government, in the military, and in each other would evaporate as survival becomes the only priority. Without power, the luxuries we take for granted, access to information, entertainment, and communication, would seem like distant memories. Let's break down how different sectors would be affected. The healthcare sector would be the first to feel the effects of the power outage. Without power, surgeries would be impossible. Patients relying on ventilators or dialysis machines would face life-threatening situations. Hospitals, which depend on electricity to store vaccines, medications, and perform diagnostic tests, would be unable to provide critical care. The transportation sector would face catastrophic disruptions. Planes, trains, and cars all rely on electric power in some way. Airplanes would be grounded, subways and trains would be halted, and personal vehicles would quickly run out of fuel as gas stations stop working. What would people do in a world where movement itself becomes nearly impossible? The ripple effects would be felt across every part of our lives. The global economy, built on an intricate web of interconnections, would collapse. Supply chains would break down, and manufacturing industries, which rely on automated systems powered by electricity, would come to a halt. The digital world we've built, from social media to e-commerce, would vanish overnight. This could take months, even years, to rebuild. In rural areas, things might start off more manageable, but they would eventually feel the strain. Farmers, who rely on electricity to irrigate crops, would struggle to produce enough food. And even if they manage, getting it to the cities where the population lives would be an enormous challenge. In essence, the world would revert back to a pre-industrial age, and it's unclear if we could adapt quickly enough. A world without power is not just an inconvenience, it's a catastrophic shift that would impact every aspect of our lives. The infrastructure we rely on to survive, from healthcare and transportation to food production and communication, would collapse. The chaos would be overwhelming, and life as we know it would no longer exist. The loss of power would fundamentally change how we interact with the world around us. What do you think? How long do you think society could survive without power? Would you be ready to live in such a world? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you're curious about how we can prevent such a catastrophe, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more thought-provoking content.